Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Wednesday. I hope the day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. It should be, certainly if you're over here in the UK. Blue skies, sun is shining, and the international break, the final international break of the season, is done and dusted. Martin Odegaard bringing the curtain down from an Arsenal point of view yesterday with Norway's exciting win. And what a game he had, by the way. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Well, actually, we're going to talk about that at the start of the show, but we've got plenty of other things to talk about. We'll round up, of course, all the other international action. Really good night for Max Dowman with England under-17s. We're going to look ahead to a huge night at the Emirates tonight. Arsenal women in action in the quarterfinal of the Champions League against Real Madrid, 2-0 deficit, trying to overturn for the women. So we'll look at that a little bit later on. Got lots of questions from you, loads of reaction to a question I was asked yesterday about Semenyo or Nico Williams. Who would you prefer? And the reaction in the comments was mad to that. So many of you get involved. So I pulled some of that together to talk about. I'm going to talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold as well. Huge story, of course, over here in the UK at the moment, which does kind of influence Arsenal a little bit because it's a huge rival who are losing a key player. So I'm going to give my thoughts on that as well, and a few other bits and pieces to get stuck into. But let's start with the final day of the international break, and what a night it was for Martin Odegaard. 4-2 winners Norway yesterday against Isreal, and Odegaard put on an absolute clinic in that game. 3 assists for him. 2 really lovely ones. One was a corner. The other 2 assists in open play were absolutely fantastic. Lovely bit of play for the first goal, and then a lovely little slip ball through to Haaland for the final assist, and an all-round performance, just sensational from Odegaard. If you haven't watched it yet, go and watch the clips and the compilations of the performance that he put in. You see 9.6 rating there. Absolutely sensational from Odegaard. And just a reminder to us all, really, and I spoke about it earlier on in this week in a show. There's a question about Odegaard, and has he had the best of seasons for Arsenal? No. And he's opened up. He's freely admitted that. He came out with a really good talking about it the other day, held his hands up, accepted he hasn't been good enough. Certainly up to the unbelievable standards he set in the last 2 seasons where he's on Arsenal's player of the year. But this is a sensational footballer we're talking about, who when he's at his best is just an absolute joy to watch. And it is impossible. And this is not an excuse. I hate when you give reasons, people will label them as an excuse. There's a completely different meaning between reasons and excuse. I'm not making this as an excuse for Martin Odegaard, but it is impossible to talk about his season and not give context in terms of what has gone on for him this season. The huge injury, the first injury like that he's ever had in his career that he had to deal with and come back from, and was rushed back from and put straight into the starting lineup, playing 90 minutes after 90 minutes. The fact that the entire right side that he's grown up learning at Arsenal and is been so influential has been ripped apart with Saka injured, White injured. So he's having to learn with new teammates doing different things. The fact he's had no striker in the last few months to play with since Kai Havertz is injury. He's got no real runners in this team to be able to feed from. All of that, it's not excuses, but it is reasons why when you assess Martin Odegaard's season this season and try and work out why he's not been at the same sort of standard maybe as he had been in the previous 2 seasons, all of that has to be taken into account. So yes, like he said, he held his hand up. He needed, he could have done better this season, no doubt about it, especially when you sort of add some, finishing and stuff like that into the game. But he's had to take on an awful lot of responsibility on the pitch because other key players have been missing. And there is definitely context needed behind his season. And a performance like the one he put in last night for Norway, albeit against, Israel, not the greatest of football teams in the world, certainly not to the standard that you're going to come up against in the Premier League. But when you put him in a team like that and everything's clicking and you've got a sensational striker like Erling Haaland in front of you making runs and everything, he will find you and he will create. And that's what I can't wait to watch Martin Odegaard next season. All the talk about people saying, he needs the captaincy taken off him. Move on from Martin Odegaard. It's just people have got short memories. Is all I can say. And I cannot wait to watch Martin Odegaard in action next season. I'm absolutely convinced. And you can all come back and pile on to me next season if I'm wrong on this, but I am absolutely convinced that Martin Odegaard is going to be back at his very, very best next season. Absolutely convinced of it. So, yeah, well done, Martin Odegaard. Can't wait to see you back in action for Arsenal on Tuesday. One here from Tom, who's got in touch, says, "Hi Charles, not sure if you've seen the clip of the Norway coach wrestling Odegaard to the ground when he was subbed off, along with the clip of him laughing when he got injured because of what Arteta's reaction might be earlier in the season. What are your overall thoughts on the bloke? Clearly can't be popular among Arsenal fans. Light banter is one thing, but to me, I don't like him. I have seen that video, yeah, and it was like, what are you doing, Solbakken? I don't quite get what's going on there. He was obviously coming back, having a bit of a sort of playful type thing with Odegaard. But then suddenly just really tried to put a lot of pressure into wrestling onto the ground. He grabbed him by the neck, was trying to pull him down. Odegaard was staying upright. I mean, they were both laughing about it. And it's, Solbakken quickly released him and they walked off laughing. And Odegaard gave an interview afterwards when he was laughing about it. But yeah, I did think it was a little bit weird. And it did turn into something a little bit too aggressive for my liking. And like you said, after that interview he gave after the ankle injury earlier in the season when he was laughing in a way to the TV people saying, "Oh, Arteta's not going to be thanking me for this one," which is, you've got to kind of read the room a little bit when you make comments like that. He's not my favourite bloke, I have to say. I don't know him, obviously. I've never met him or anything like that. But from the brief things I've seen of him, he's not exactly my. He's not towards the top of my list of favourite international managers. I have to say, sticking on the international scene, Max Dowman yesterday. Brilliant goal, which I have a clip of actually. I'm just going to watch it. Hopefully this works. So let's flick through. This is Dowman's goal. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it now. I'll play it for a few times. This was in a 5-0 win for England against Northern Ireland for the under-17s yesterday. Dowman's still 15, of course, but this just sort of showcases everything that he's good at. When you watch it, what I love about this goal, apart from the dribble and the finish, obviously, but it's the way he takes the ball, the pass he gets. He takes it on the half turn and is immediately ready to drive forwards at goal. A lot of people, when you get a ball like that, they'll keep their back to goal and like to, play it off, link up with someone else. But he's immediate thought when that ball's coming into him, right, I'm getting on the half turn so that I can just receive the ball and drive forward. And it's exactly what he does. Look at that. The first touch, perfect on his right foot, and it just allows him to turn and start to face the goal. And then obviously the dribbling ability, on getting it on that left foot, driving through the penalty area. Defending is not great, it must be said, but just a goal that perfectly sort of showcases everything that Max Dowman is good at and why there's so much excitement at Arsenal about him. It's just he's just a really exciting talent. And again, it's really, you've got to remember the kid is 15. I have to tell myself at times to remember that he's 15. You don't want to get overblown in the hype. Declan Rice, when he was talking about him earlier on in the international break, was absolutely right. It's like, when you're brilliant at 15, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be the best at 18. So it's still a lot of work for Max Dowman to do, to stay, to continue to develop and all that. But, it's very, very exciting when you've got a player clearly with this much talent on your hands progressing through the ranks at Arsenal. And I'm sure we're going to see him involved next season. I'm sure he probably would have been involved this season had the regulations allowed. Obviously, that wasn't the case because of his age and how Arsenal registered him at the start of the season. But, from next season onwards, I'm sure we're going to see him in and around the first team at times. Obviously, that contract is sort of looming large as well, and you want to get him tied down to that first professional contract when you can. And help, obviously, having him around the first team is going to absolutely help with that. But yeah, really good performance from him. They took him off. It was 4-0 at half time. That was the fourth goal. They took him off at half time. I think they just felt sorry for Northern Ireland more than anything else. He's a hell of a talent, no doubt about it. So it's very, very exciting. Right, moving on quickly to the match at the Emirates tonight. As I spoke about, Arsenal versus Real Madrid. Huge game for the women. 2-0 down after that really disappointing result in the first leg last week in Spain. Going to play on a much better surface tonight, that's for sure. Absolute disgrace, the surface obviously they played on last week in Spain. Yes, it had been raining, but even so, that didn't make excuses for what a terrible pitch that was. It's going to be completely different tonight. Huge game for them, no doubt about it. Rennie Slegers was in a press conference yesterday in terms of team news. Says everyone's available apart from Lottie Wooben. Moyes was asked about Victoria Pelova, obviously came back from that long-term injury at the weekend in a win against Liverpool, and whether this would be too sort of early for her to start. And Renee said she came back from a long-term injury, so we have to bring her back carefully. Of course, she got her first minutes back in the team on Saturday. She did really well, and we're very happy for her. Now we have to find the right way for her to come back in the squad, and whether Arsenal are going to have to attack, set up in a more attacking formation because they're 2 goals down to this Real Madrid team. She said, we want to balance tomorrow. So obviously we're aware of Real Madrid's threat as well, but we know we need what we need to do tomorrow. So we'll try and make the right decisions, have a lot of quality in the squad, both from the starting and from the finishing perspective. A huge game for everyone. Leah Williamson, no bigger occasion than for the captain. Obviously, she says, I think we're very lucky here because that stage isn't foreign to us. Being part of Arsenal means you play in front of big crowds and you're competing always with every team. I think there's a lot more experience than me in the team with these sorts of situations. So I'll play my role, play my part. I think the experience of overturning the last quarterfinal against Bayern Munich, I think that will come in handy for anybody that played in that game. That was a great memory. Good things happen in football, bad things happen in football. When the good things happen, you keep them in your pocket just as much as the bad, but you call on them when you need them. So I think anybody that was involved in that game will take confidence from that, knowing that we know how to do it. It's almost an identical situation. And she's right. Obviously, you can draw on the memories of that Bayern Munich game at the Emirates. What a special night that was. I mean, Arsenal are going to be, it's a really tough challenge for Arsenal. And Real are flying, obviously, full of confidence. They beat Barcelona for the first time in about 5 years at the weekend. And the way they did that with their counter-attacking threat, you've got to think that's going to be a real issue for Arsenal today. Even in the first leg, you could see with sort of Caicedo and Weir how they like to get the ball forward quickly and, turn defence into attack very, very quickly. And they were very, good at that against Arsenal. Both goals really came from counter-attacks in that game. And Arsenal, when you think they're going to be having a pushing forward to try and overturn this deficit, they might leave space at the back for Real to exploit. So it's going to be a real tough balancing act for the players and for Rene to get the tactics right, because you don't want to leave yourself too exposed on the back because of the threat that Real Madrid have. But going to be a really, really good night. You can watch it. It's live on DAZN's YouTube if you're not going to the game. Over 25,000, I think, tickets sold. Might be pushing 30,000 by the time the players walk out for the game tonight. So it should be a cracking atmosphere at the Emirates if you're going. Tickets are still available if you do want to go and support the women a little bit later on as well. So good luck to them. Hopefully when we round this up in tomorrow's show, we're talking about a very historic comeback for the women. Right, moving on now. I know this technically isn't an Arsenal player, but it's very worth talking about, I think, from an Arsenal point of view. For Liverpool, it's huge. Obviously, Trent Alexander-Arnold. We've known for a long, long time that it looks like he is going to be going to Real Madrid. And obviously, stories emerged yesterday that it is now pretty much a done deal. There's been lots of backlash, certainly online, from Liverpool fans to Trent over this, which I think is unfair, I have to say. I mean, obviously, it hurts. It really hurts when you lose a key player, especially for free. If you're going to lose a key player, yes, you want to at least get some money out of it to sort of soften the blow. Soften the blow a little bit. Liverpool aren't even going to do that with one of their own homegrown players. But having said that, Trent came through the system. He didn't cost them any money from a sort of wages, from a transfer fee point of view. He's given them huge amounts of service. He's won the European Cup. He's won 2 Premier Leagues if you count the one they're going to win this season. Every major trophy, every major honour. He set up so many goals. He scored so many goals. He's been such a top player for them that, and I know it's easy for me to say this, not as a Liverpool fan, but you kind of feel like, well, he's served his time. He's given you more, than most players will ever give to one single club. And this is Real Madrid you're talking about. It is very, very hard to turn them down. But as Tom says here, he says, Charles, not sure if you... Oh, I've put up the completely wrong comment there. That is not the one I was supposed to be putting up underneath Trent Alexander-Arnold. So I'm going to have to try and find this. So bear with me a second because I want to get this right. No, that's Tom's one again. I think this is the right one. Here we go. It's from Elizabeth. Sorry, Elizabeth. I haven't put yours on screen. I've made a bit of a mess of that. But you say, thoughts on Trent to Madrid? We could find ourselves in a very similar situation in a few years' time. However, if our player, I don't even want to say his name, went to Madrid after winning us everything he could win at Arsenal, I don't think I'd be as angry as some Liverpool fans are. At the end of the day, it's business. Maybe it's more about the fact TAA is the local lad. Now, obviously, you're talking about William Saliba there. The player you don't want to name is William Saliba, of course. So my thoughts on it are, as I said, I can absolutely see why Trent has done it. I get why Liverpool fans are upset, but I think that is mainly just because if you're losing a good player. I mean, it's happened with us so many times. Obviously, it really, really hurts. But I don't think Trent's been disloyal or anything like that. I think he's just had an opportunity after so long at one club where he's won absolutely everything. He's now got the opportunity to move to the biggest club in the world, which, let's face it, have got the best players in the world at the moment and look set to continue to have a good chance of dominating certainly European football for the next few years. So it's very hard to really criticise him in this situation. I think it's definitely a cautionary tale for Arsenal with Saliba. Of course, we know how Real Madrid operate. We know the free transfers that they like to pick up for the top players. You know, they've benefited from it in the past. With it, Rudiger was free, wasn't he? Trent's going to be free. Kylian Mbappe was free. They were trying to get Alphonso Davies. That didn't work out. He's just done his cruciate, actually. So good job for them. Probably they didn't get him, sign him to a pre-contract agreement. And so we know how they like to operate. And Saliba's obviously got 2 years left on his deal. And if they are going to be getting in his ear, you would think they're going to be saying, just hold tight, don't sign a new contract, and we're going to sign you on a free. And it's very hard to not, if you're a club, say Liverpool, you know, this is your guy. This is Trent. He's come through the system. He's a Liverpool lad. He's a local lad. And yet they couldn't manage to get him to stay when you got Real Madrid in his ear saying, look, just hold on tight, don't sign a new contract, and we'll give you big money on wages. And so, you know, there's no, with Saliba, yes, he loves Arsenal. He was an Arsenal fan growing up, but he's not a local lad. He doesn't quite have the same emotional tie that Trent has. And so that is a worry for Arsenal. It's definitely a cautionary tale in terms of why you need to get this contract sorted, or take the really difficult decision of potentially at least getting some money back on your asset, which is obviously William Saliba. Liverpool didn't do that with Trent. They couldn't get any money on it for him. You know, do Arsenal need to make a decision with Saliba if he hasn't signed? Certainly by the time he gets to next summer and he's only got 1 year left on his deal, do you then try and cut some sort of deal with Madrid? It's all an issue Arsenal are going to have to try and solve. But yeah, that's my thought on the Trent situation. I absolutely get why it hurts Liverpool fans, but I think deep down, they've got to really understand why he is making this move. And I think it's very, very hard to criticise him when it comes to that. Right, moving on now. As I said, loads of reaction to what I talked about yesterday when I was asked a question about Semenyo and who would I prefer, Semenyo or Nico Williams. And it was a really hard one to answer. I just wasn't sure. I thought maybe the most sensible option would be Semenyo because you know what he's going to bring in the Premier League. He, you know, doesn't need to settle. There's no going to be issues with potential homesickness or struggling to adapt or anything like that. You know, he's a big Arsenal fan. He can come in, he can play on either side of the flank. But then I do like Nico Williams, excites me a lot. And I think it's a much bigger risk. And I think he's more of a work in progress than Semenyo is. But it was a really hard one for me to answer. So I didn't really answer it, to be fair. But loads of you got in touch. I was really surprised with overwhelming majority in the comments yesterday. If you want to go look through them yesterday, you can find them in yesterday's video. Overwhelming majority saying Semenyo rather than Nico Williams. But I've pulled some of them together, and here's some of them. So Sam says, watched Williams in the Nations League against Netherlands, and he was very, very good at beating his man on a regular basis. But yeah, his final ball and decision-making was lacking every time. Agree Williams could be a risk, or perhaps just someone who doesn't make an immediate impact as he adjusts. Semenyo would be safe, but maybe a lower ceiling. Kane Marlon says Semenyo all day, better player, explosive, versatile, and will contribute more to the team. Williams is a slight upgrade to Martinelli, but is the same on a bad day and does not make the team better. He's inconsistent. Cream Corn says, I'm sorry, have we not been shown time and time again how being Premier League proven means absolutely soddle, I'll say. I genuinely don't understand why people think it's an important factor in signing players. Just a nonsensical, cowardly excuse to not be brave in the transfer window. So far, it clearly hasn't worked for us, has it? I think it has, hasn't it? What's the difference in Premier League? I mean, I go to Mudryk or Trossard. At the time, I was all in for Mudryk. He really excited me. I really wanted that to happen. It didn't happen. They got Trossard instead. Who was a better signing? Easy answer, Trossard. He, came straight in, slotted into the team, and was bang straight away. Premier League proven does count for an awful lot. It definitely does. It's not a cowardly excuse at all. It's not saying you always have to sign Premier League proven players. You sometimes do need to go out and bring players in from abroad, and everyone does do that. But I don't think it's a cowardly excuse. I think it's a definite given there that it can be a real benefit not to have to adjust. Mr. D-Mark V6 says, Semenyo all day long. Don't get the hype about Williams. Good Euros, yes, but not a lot since. Feel it would be a waste of money. Far better and cheaper options available. Few more here. Ozzy says, I'd prefer Nico Williams. Having Marino and potentially Zubamendi there should be enough to help Nico settle. Yeah, you're right about that. Although, obviously, we don't know if Zubamendi is going to be here or not yet. Greyhound 1 Racing says, Williams, too risky. Like Semenyo a lot, but Eze would be my choice. Blaze John says, let's learn from our past mistakes. You get Semenyo. Nico Williams is expensive and a larger risk. There's potential for a higher upside. If it was my money, I'm betting it on Semenyo. And John says, Semenyo all day long. The money Williams is asking is simply delusional. Yeah, Williams would be big wages, definitely bigger than Semenyo, because Williams is on very nice, hefty wages at Athletic Bilbao, which has to be the case for that club because they need to pay very well to keep them because of the way they allowed to sign players, or the restrictions they have when it comes to signing players. They have to make sure the ones that they do get, they pay handsomely well to ensure that they stay. So yeah, as I said, the overwhelming majority going through the comments yesterday was Semenyo rather than Nico Williams. So thanks very much for all of those being sent in. I got one from Dennis now, says, I have two questions. First being about Liverpool. With Trent looking likely to sign a pre-contract with Real, or he actually has, and with the big question marks over Salah and Virgil van Dijk, do you think this and injuries to some of their players could be enough for their form to drop off? And if so, do you see any chance of Arsenal capitalising on a potential collapse? Drop off? No, I'm afraid not, Dennis. The title is done and dusted. Liverpool winning the title. Don't try and convince yourself that Arsenal is still in the title race. It is not going to happen. Second question, if Arsenal sign top-class players in the positions that need addressing, i.e. striker, left wing, central midfielder, do you see us winning the Premier League and the Champions League next season, or either a cup? Also, who do you see challenging for the Premier League? Do I see Arsenal winning it? I don't know. I thought Arsenal were going to win it this season. I was convinced Arsenal were going to win it this season. I think, again, you need to be lucky, because this goes back to my reasons rather than excuses. You know, I'm not using these as excuses, but it's impossible to contextualize Arsenal's season without the injuries. You know, the injuries are a big part of why Arsenal haven't challenged this season for the Premier League. Had Saka stayed fit and not got that injury in December, and been fit the whole season, I'm absolutely convinced right now they'd be in the title race for Liverpool. I'm not saying they definitely would have won it, but they'd right now be in the title race for Liverpool. Had Salah got injured in December and Saka stayed fit, I would say right now Arsenal would be ahead of Liverpool in the league. I just think that's clear, and I think that has to be put into, when you're talking about the season and why Arsenal haven't challenged the season, that has to be included in it. And that's on top of the other injuries that Arsenal have suffered as well. So you've got to get lucky next season, no matter who you sign. Even if Arsenal go out and sign top players this summer, which we all hope they do, if they get injured next season, then you're going to struggle. It's plain and simple. So do I think they win the league next season? It's impossible for me to say. Can I see us winning it? Yes, absolutely. I think they'll be in a good position. I think Liverpool, depending on what happens, obviously Trent's gone. If one of Salah and Van Dijk goes as well on top of Trent, then that's a big loss for them. Personally, I think they'll both end up staying, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Man City, I think, are in a bit of a rebuild, so I'm not convinced that Man City next season are going to suddenly power back to be the Man City we've known for recent years. Chelsea, still not sure on them next season, even if they do go out and buy a striker. So I think Arsenal are very well set if they have a very good summer this summer. But you know, it's impossible right now to be able to say for certain whether I think they'll win the league or the Champions League, but I think they'll have a chance, no doubt about that. And that's it from me today, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it as always. I'll be back once again tomorrow to do it all over again. If you're heading to the Emirates tonight for the women's game, enjoy it. I hope you see a really cracking game. Hopefully the women can come back and make it a pretty historic and amazing night at the Emirates. We'll be talking about that tomorrow, as well as all the usual other Arsenal stuff. Until then, have a good day. Bye-bye.